discussing something critical, which is Greenland annexation, Trump's latest card. So when a sitting president speaks, the world listens, not because it agrees, but because words from power can quickly become policy. The U.S. President Donald Trump has once again placed Greenland on the global agenda, openly arguing that American control of the Arctic territory is critical to U.S. national and strategic interests, while he insists that force is not on the table. The suggestion alone has unsettled Denmark, alarmed Greenlanders, and reignited debate about sovereignty, alliance, politics, and a new scramble for the Arctic. Is this a serious policy direction, a negotiating tactic, or a strategic warning shot to rivals? When a sitting president speaks, this, of course, is going to be a lot of discussion this morning on New Dawn, the interview segment. And I am Simia Tabaru. I won't be doing this alone. Sanusi Latif is joining me to debate this very interesting conversation today.
Yeah, Simia, good morning. Good morning to you, wherever you are watching us from. It's important we talk about this topic, and we have our guest seated in the studio already. Simia will be doing justice to their introduction.
All right, to discuss the Greenland annexation, Trump's latest card, we have two qualified individuals here in the studio to dissect the critical angles to it. We have, he said he's not a barrister. Of course, he's a lawyer. He's a constitutional lawyer, Mr. Tunji Onobawo. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today.
It's my pleasure to be here always.
We also have the lecturer of History and Diplomatic Studies, Olabisi Onabanjo University, Mr. Sheung Shoile. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I like the fact that I pronounced the name correctly. Okay, I would allow my colleague to fire the first.
Yeah, to build the cut, right? Anyway, let's look at what Trump is trying to do with Greenland. According to him, I don't know whether you two will agree with him. He said it's only the U.S. that can actually protect, develop, and improve Greenland. A territory on its own being controlled by Denmark. That is, those are the words. those are what the positions, part of the positions of the U.S. president. Do you agree with them? With him rather, that it's only the U.S. that can protect, develop, and improve Greenland. Let's start from Never mind. I was almost saying by.
Never mind. The Trump of a man, though the president of a very powerful nation in the world, is not and does not profess to be a student of history. And whoever, even a nation who does not know how it gets to a place or does not know where it's coming from, well, the future will look extremely chaotic for that person. Yes, everybody in the world now, we are so familiar with the antics of Donald Trump. You see, the way he speaks is egocentric disposition and abusive way, very undiplomatic of commenting on both internal issues in the U.S. and external matters involving other countries. So for me, going by how that area at the top of the globe and antics are cool, extremely cold, so he cannot, going by the history of that place, claim to be that the U.S. is, or maybe Trump, don't let me use the U.S. now, will be in the best position to protect that
territory.
Okay, maybe we move the question to
there's a question that is linked to that. Please let me throw it to Mr. Shoile. Right? Shoile. Okay. A related question to what I asked Mr. Onobawo is what the positions of Trump about why he's trying to do that for the U.S. and he claimed that the U.S. they can actually claim that territory because of its efforts to defend the territory during the World War II after the invasion of Denmark. The invasion of Denmark by Germany. That looking at what the U.S. did to actually protect they have the right. In fact, in his words, let me use his words. He said, "We already had it." Talking about the territory, but we returned it to Denmark. So what's your take on this?
Well, thank you so very much for having me once again. The issue of Greenland has been a recurring issue, and American interest in that region has been there as long as any man can remember. One thing that is sure is that we are seeing the resurfacing of power politics, where countries who have influence and who have the political wherewithal can, actually scramble for territories. All right, so it shows clearly that power politics is still very much in the front burner as far as international relations is concerned. Going by the rhetoric of Donald Trump is very clear. Like we say in Yoruba, if they have not done anything in that space, there will be nothing to lay claim on as far as that territory is concerned. But one thing is sure, America's interest in Greenland predates Donald Trump. It's just simply an extension of historical circumstance and events.
Okay, there are different reasons people say Donald Trump has decided to go after Greenland, and some talked about the relationship between China and Denmark. Denmark, of course, is an ally of the United States, and here Denmark has actually said this is a no-go area. But we also saw one text message that was sent to a message that was sent to the president of Norway. Norway is not actually is not the, how do I call it? It's not actually the how do I put it now? But of course, we've seen that reaction from the president, saying it's about not getting the Nobel Peace Prize, sort of. And of course, he was saying that, dear Jonas, this is a message reading, from, the text is from President Trump. Dear Jonas, that's the president of Norway, considering your country's decision not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. So some said this is about the resources in Greenland, and while some say, oh, it's just the pettiness of the president, he just wants to get at everybody. He started with Venezuela, he believes he can reach anywhere in the world, and of course we even believe that he started from Nigeria when he said he was going to come into Nigeria gun ablazing if Christian genocide didn't stop. And why some people said that genocide narrative was also because he has an intention bigger than that. That's of course what was happening in Nigeria at the time.
Yes. Shall I go? All right. Now, the issue of Greenland is a diplomatic round, and you see there are different levels by which you can approach the issue. And one of the ways by which you can approach it is to look at it from the point of view of nationalism. You see, some of this rhetoric is good for the home audience. All right, it shows that the government of the day is nationalistic, powerful, is pushing a national agenda, is good for the support at home. It is also a rhetoric that sends a very strong signal to international rivals that, hey, listen, our pace, our sphere is for us and it's not for dabbling. It's not for anyone to dabble into it. So it's a game of influence. It's a game of it's a messaging tactic, you know, to show that the government that is on ground knows what it's doing. Now, every other thing can now come around that messaging tactic. Now, the idea of a peace Nobel Prize, I mean, if Norway, what is Norway's interest or stake in Greenland? The judgment of 1933 has already settled that. All right, the International Court of Justice has already hands off Norway's claim as far as Greenland is concerned. So when we are talking of Greenland, we must be talking of Denmark, essentially. And even at that, what is really making Greenland to be under Denmark is simply because of the economic, enjoyment. I mean, what interventions that they are getting from. It's essentially a self-rule place. That autonomy is there. You know, the only reason why they have refused by the the Act of 2009, which requires that they become independent at their will. You know, so when you look at all of these things playing out, we can look at it from different levels. It is signaling the fact that America is awake to its leadership, unchallenged leadership in the Western Hemisphere, and it's just a message to send China and Russia out of that sphere.
Okay, because you are a lawyer, and of course this has to do with international law precisely, we have all agreed that Greenland is autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark. And with this reality, how exactly is President Trump going to push this idea? Because now it's looking like it's just his opinion, and of course he brought it on that because he's the President of America, it can become a policy, and of course it can make practical moves getting Greenland as it were.
Well, if we want to speak law, be it municipal or international, we, as a matter of necessity, separate the person of Trump and his personal interest and the interest of the United States of America. Yes, this issue of Greenland has always been there before Trump became president. But when we are talking about global peace and sovereignty of nations and respect for rule of law, I don't think Trump has his mind on all this. Like I said, he's just been extremely egocentric, and it seems he relish in rhetoric and blowing a lot of insult to other people. Because at the end of the day, after the end of the Second World War, the United Nations came to be, and all the apparatus for justice, including the ICJ, International Court of Justice. And in a way, in spite of the power-wielding dispositions of countries like the U.S. in the Security Council, the organs of the UN was at least trying to ensure that the sovereignty of all countries constituting the United Nations are respected, and the issue that can generate probably the Third World War should be taken care of. But we can see, because I like antecedents and history, because it illuminates one's path. All this we saw in around 1982, the issue of Falklands Island off the coast of Argentina, where Britain just woke up and said, okay, yes, we have been in control of that. And they went to war, unnecessary war. Look at the case of Iraq. When these same powerful people, they pushed Saddam Hussein after the unnecessary war between Iran and Iraq. They pushed, cajole and encouraged him to go and annex Kuwait, as they call it, the 30th district of the Iraq. And immediately, like the Yoruba would say, those who call Ole Kwaja, and they are the ones who are calling Ole Kwamu. That was the reason why the policeman of the world, the US, now had reason to invade Iraq itself, remove the president, even putting off using the process, the local process of administration of justice in that country. And tell me, has Iraq known any peace up to now? So with the recent issue of Venezuela is very instructive too, because at the end of the day, when we see Iran, the Israeli, the effort of the US, and we see what is happening in Russia and Ukraine, the NATO issue and all of this things. You see, they have turned the world, in spite of all the machinery of the United Nations put in place to ensure world peace. Okay. They have turned the world into the might is right.
Yeah, anyway, Mr. Onabawa actually mentioned the fact that he used the phrase, the police of the world, referring to the US, and he mentioned it. Why it's important that we're having this kind of conversation is what you mentioned earlier, talking about seniors, about the intervention of the US in Nigeria, saying that we have a Christian genocide, and that is why it's very important for us to look at all of these issues. Even though we're talking about Greenland, but Nigeria, we exist in the global space, so whatever happens internationally, it's also very important. And when you look at the Greenland that we're talking about, maybe a little background, you also mentioned the issue of their natural resources. Yeah. They have quite rich natural resources. They have the rare earth minerals, they have iron, they have uranium. They have no reports and indications that they have significant reserves of oil and gas. So when you look at all of these, they are very, very important to any nation when you're talking about natural resources. And it's just an island. In fact, the world's largest island, and the most sparsely populated. I think they said they have 56,000. About 56,000. And also talking about the location, you know, they are between North America and the Arctic. But like Mr. Shoili said, because Denmark has actually been helping them because of their level of economy, that was why they've been controlled for about 300 years, and eventually they became part of a Danish citizen in 1953 when they became a territory being controlled by Denmark. And he spoke about the latest, I think 2009, when they can now gain their independence on their own. So looking at all of this information together, we realize that this is a territory on its own, although under Denmark, who can get its independence at will with rich natural resources. And here is the US that from our conversation we've spoken about going to Iraq. When they went to Iraq, they said they were a weapon of mass destruction. And when Saddam was gone, we've not seen the weapon of mass destruction up till now. We spoke about Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro was
the most recent one.
That was the beginning of this month.
Exactly.
They went to Venezuela, raided Venezuela, picked up their president, the wife, and took him to New York. So should the US come to Nigeria and come and pick up a president, God forbid? So that's why we're having all of these conversations. But having said that, looking at all of these and looking at the fact that US is saying that they are not going to use force. I mean, Trump is saying that they are not going to use force. He's saying that they are not going there because of their mineral resources. And he also said something that is instructive. In 2019, during Trump's first term, he made an effort to buy Greenland, and they said they were not for sale. And immediately he got into power, 2025 January, he reopened this development. So maybe I should ask you, what do you think Trump really wants beyond the agenda of the Americans? Because we are talking about something that predates his administration. But in himself, between 2019 and now, we had the former president of the US. He didn't go this route. But Trump is back and he's going through route. What does he really want? So what do you think he really wants?
Trump?
Yes. As president of the US.
You need to go and check the antecedent of the man Donald Trump. Well, when he is occupying the seat of the President of the United States, yeah, is under a lot of immunity. The same immunity is violating in the respect of the President of Venezuela. But all his life has been a businessman in the real sense of it. He does not really believe on social welfare, which is always the bedrock of activities, governance activities all over the world. He believes in business, possibly if you can cut corners and make money. Yeah. And that approach is employing to
rule the U.S.
To rule the U.S.
and police the world.
And well, police. Let's see how far I can do that, and steal or annex anywhere or any place that can support the economy.
We're talking about the U.S., but still is a big word.
Of course. So maybe.
No. I just tried to keep that one in because he spoke about Trump, possibly. I mean, his antecedent of trying to steal. And I said it's a big word. So
yeah, it may be a big word diplomatically, but substantially and in law, that is exactly what he's doing in respect of Greenland.
Okay.
Well, what is the definition of armed robbery?
So we've seen the U.S. reaction to China when it comes to Taiwan. We've seen their reaction when we talked about Ukraine and Russia with respect to territories and all that. And the U.S. is now, he mentioned here the U.S. being the police of the world, sort of. And now you have them, jumping up and down. They have the moral right to do anything unquestioned. So the same thing they criticize others for doing, they take pride, doing most of those things. So what should Americans be saying, and what should the world, especially the United States, be doing at this critical time that this is becoming too much on the table?
Well, you see, morality does not come in when we talk about politics. And I don't think it is right that we divorce Trump from the entire American state. Whatever he does, he's doing on behalf of
the Americans.
The Americans. He has their, their mandate to lead them. All right.
Well, we've seen reactions from his own political party, the Republicans, also criticizing the manner with which he's going. In fact, I agree with you to an extent, because when it became the matter of Venezuela, they were not asking why, they were not fighting him why he went to Venezuela to go, why he did not go through the Senate or something. That was majorly the questions they were asking. I didn't go through due process. He didn't consult them, not that they did not support what he did.
You see, one thing about analysis of world events is that you look at the individual level. There's something we call level of analysis in international relations. When you're analyzing an international event, you look at it from the personality, the psychological makeup of the leader, all right, and how that influence decision making at the national and international level. All right. Now, if you come home, you discover that the personality of President Jonathan is quite different from the the style, the leadership style of someone like President Yaradua. And I mean, you can look at it like that. So it plays out in that format. Now, like we know, you can be popular through two means. You could be cautious, cultured, and calm, and become, as a result of that, become popular. Right. And you could be a rabble rouser and also become popular. I mean, so it's a matter of style. It's a matter of personal traits and characteristics. And that is why, personally, I don't have that tendency to want to attack him, because as it is, the president of the most powerful nation in the world. Now, another thing that one may want to also ascribe to him is that the party on whose platform he had become the president of America is a nationalistic party. all right, the the processes or the beliefs of the Republicans are essentially nationalistic, you know. So, and we saw that playing out. And the fact that they won that election showed that its rhetoric resonated with the larger population of the Nigerian, of the American states, you know. And you see, all of those things will play out in the final analysis. So, as for Greenland, you see, it is obvious that force cannot be used to take over that place. We are in the post-1914 era, where international law, norm, and order is the order of the day. Article 2, subsection 4 of the UN Charter is very clear on this. You have to respect the sovereignty of state, and you cannot just impose yourself. And you know, he knows this. Besides, Denmark, that is supposedly the de facto, or maybe the controller of that territory, is an ally through the NATO. So a whole lot of problems will arise, and that is why he's already backtracking. And that was why I said his idea and his approach is essentially moving around messaging. He is sending messages.
When you say he's sending messages, some have also criticized the world, especially the United Nations and other, the NATO and of course America and the likes, that this of course is what they do diplomatically. We talk about Francophone Africa, we talk about Anglophone Africans, and then you have this element of we're still subject in the hands of the colonial masters. But at the end of the day, what we tend to hear largely is that, okay, there are still some things they get from us. Our mineral resources, they talk about some of these, crises, insecurity crisis being filled by these international, conspirators, and of course, that of course is taking what belongs to the people of Africa. Look at DRC, what's present happening in terms of resources. They have that in abundance, and of course they are in chaos in that country.
Yeah.
So diplomatically, people say what Trump is doing is not new to what Britain did, what France did, what Denmark is also doing to Greenlanders. But largely, they just don't come into the public just like Trump is doing it now. And criticizing Trump would just mean that they are being hypocritical.
You see, the issue is not new. It's just the bluntness of the man that is involved.
Okay.
The casting of the language, and that is, for me, some of the personal deficiencies or shortcomings of the man. He's not a diplomatic person. Exactly. He says things the way he sees them, and that is the difference between him and most of the other legendary president that America has had. But then we cannot take away the fact that what he's pushing is still an enduring aspiration of the American state. Now, the idea of carving out the Western Hemisphere as an American area of influence, predating Monroe Doctrine. This area that we have is essentially our home. Now, the reason why there was less emphasis on Greenland right from time, don't forget that even Denmark was controlling, there's a place we call the Danish West Indies, comprising of the Virgin Islands, which America bought in 1916. So we look at all of these things, you see that historical, continuity in what is being done. But then what I would say is the issue, basically, is that the increasingly importance of the Arctic region. Now that place is the shortest route between America and Russia.
Yes.
Now there is increasing activity of the Chinese and Russians around that Arctic region. That portends security, threat or concern for the Americans. It also has, because if you don't take steps towards annexing or trying to see how you can control that place, your enemies are just looking around to take advantage at the slightest opportunity.
So in the bigger picture, is it about the enemies now for Donald Trump? We talk about
it's a composite factor. The enemies are there, the access to mineral resources, geopolitical considerations where you control that area, which is a major area for connectivity between America, Western Hemisphere and Asia, as it were. You see, control of those international gateways, an important outpost, is a critical aspect of power. Power status and influence in international relations.
Okay, Mr. Olopao, let's look at this aspect of this conversation. The European Union, the EU, and most European nations, they've reacted that they are not actually in support, and that was why Trump initially was trying to, introduce a trade tariff, even though he, backtrack on that. But looking at, we're talking about the European Union, and the European nations are reacting that they will not support that, and EU is saying that they will still come out with a strong position. How do you think the world should react to all of these things? Because Yorubas, you've been saying a lot of Yoruba proverbs. Yorubas will say, if you see people that you are within range, sort of getting dead, and they said dead is actually giving you a profile. So if all of this is happening, EU has reacted, and we're talking about the U.S. intervention in Nigeria. How do you think the world should react?
I will always want to separate leaders at times from their countries, because history has taught us that.
But that will be pretty difficult.
History has taught us that most of these leaders, they plunge the country or their people to a lot of disasters simply because of their personal antics and ego. The Nigeria Civil War is so instructive on this. Now, geographical location of Greenland, yes, short cut, because they sit on the northern hemisphere, Arctic Circle, the coldest everywhere in the world. Even the Antarctic down the south is not as cold as that place.
Yeah.
Shortest route, even for ballistic missiles. Yeah, because when these people do all these things, economic interest, but they have their heart on war when the war comes to protect the economic interest. You will know this place where we call the Horn of Africa. Horn of Africa, around Somalia, Eritrea, because of that route, that shortcut, they used to, when they are coming from the east, they used to go down South Africa, Madagascar, the chipping basin to Europe and America. But at a point in time, the canal and everything, and see all these people passing, the ship passing, that place, because of that importance to international trade, has always not been stable. No stable government. Eritrea, Somalia, and everything. So, these are the people who are using that place that want to secure the place. There is no government there, turmoil there everywhere. So they consider themselves into policemen. So they manage those places. There will never be a stable government. So all these things, they have happened before. They are just repeating themselves. Make interest, ego of leaders, and paying just lip service to world peace.
What I'm just trying to say is that how should the world react? Because it's very important, and maybe we should also bring it home. That for us as a nation, looking at, we've spoken about the intervention of the U.S.
Okay, Nigeria.
So how should we react? What should our government be thinking? What should even the people of Nigeria be thinking about the pattern and the trend that we've seen with Donald Trump as the president of the U.S., looking at his recent relationship with Nigeria?
As far as developing world, Africa is concerned, the stage we are, we cannot make any emphatic influence on this world issue, but we can protect and preserve our home front. It's very, very unfortunate that the way we do politics in Nigeria is such that whenever you are not in government, whoever is in government do everything possible even if is to bring the country down into war,
to destroy the
want to destroy. That is why when I just read in the social media that can we ask Trump to come to Nigeria to come and do what? But either we appreciate it or not, Nigeria is blessed with good human resources. In world diplomacy, they are there. So at the end of the day, what do you see? Trump is coming. Okay, if you know that you have a way to assist us to fight all this banditry and everything, we are ready to cooperate with you. It's not just an issue of you coming, like Trump said, to invade this country. And we'll be making progress along that line while we still keep our sovereignty.
Okay, if I may react to that very quickly, you see, the world is reacting rightly.
Okay.
You know, by trying to make sure that agenda is not achieved. All right, because you see, precedent is very key. You see, precedents are cast in iron. Once there is such a precedent that has been laid, you'll find out that every other thing, you see, everything we have been saying now, we have been referring to issues that happened in the past.
Yes.
You mentioned Falkland Division, 1982. You mentioned Iraq and all of those. We've done a lot of history here. So what the world is doing by trying to stop in Denmark, NATO, you know, what powers is very, very important. So that we will not have this precedent there that we will encourage somebody somewhere along the line in future to take to that path. For the third world, Nigeria particularly, we should begin to look inward to develop. You see, if you don't grow, the big fish will hit you up. You know, it's a jungle affair.
Yeah,
it's
survival of the fittest in the jungle.
You know, so if you are powerless, you get swallowed by the stronger countries. So what do? Develop yourself, look inward. You see, the idea of realism or the realist paradigm will continue to shape international, you know, affairs for a very long time. It is something that centers around power, centered around influence, centered around economic, you know, dominance. And once you put yourself in a negative side, in a weak side, you find that the stronger side will continually come at you.
You mentioned NATO when you were talking, and I remember in all of this Greenland issue, Donald Trump actually criticized NATO that he was getting little from NATO, and you know, a lot of people also reminded him that the very first time that NATO used its military assets was after the 9/11 attack. I think that was 2001 or thereabout. So therefore Trump is like, what am I really getting from you? So whatever you are saying, you are talking about the reaction of NATO.
Yes.
That's why I'm asking that question. So it's like, whatever you are saying, I'm not really getting much from you, but I'm also giving. So what's your take on that?
You see, Americans have done a lot. America as a country has done a lot for the Europeans. You see, if you look at the world history, they were all battered in the aftermath of the Second World War. It was the Truman, the Marshall Plan, that Americans brought out money that they used in jumpstarting their economic development. In fact, the creation of NATO was American initiative, which was meant to push back the influence of the Soviet Union during the Cold War era, you know. So, and Americans have funded that organization for quite a long time, donating militarily and all of that. So it's like Nigeria.
But I just mentioned something now that people for the same US that have done a lot for NATO, it was the same country that benefited for the very first time.
I'm coming there.
Okay.
I know what you're saying.
It's only a father-son relationship. Europe beg America anyway.
Okay, you said you are coming there.
I'm coming there because you see, when they are claiming they used is it not in the 2001?
Yeah.
Even at that, you discover that America essentially was funding that operation. They only brought in military personnel, so to speak.
These are human resources.
Yes, of course, yes.
From NATO.
Definitely, yes.
But that's why we refer to them as military assets.
I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying is that who jump-started the thing in the first place that brought them to that level that they can even contribute? It's like South Africa.
So Trump is right to call their bluff.
I know what I'm talking. He knows this thing. one thing about Trump is that he's a very good student of history. We may not like his style, but you see, he is not there to satisfy Nigerians. He's not there to satisfy anybody. He's there to make America. He has made it clear, make America great again. Any which way he goes in doing that, it is either you make yourself powerful to be able to withstand him.
So democracy is what people describe as the one in trial at this moment, because the democracy, they say, is the government of the people, for the people, and by the people. And of course, we talk about sovereignty. It means that they have their the right to self-determination and the likes. But of course, people have also asked, what can the world do if Trump decides that that's where he wants to go? What should the rest of the world be doing, and what can they actually do to stop him?
No, the process is already on. You see, you can't operate in isolation. It's an international system. There is no way you can claim to dominate everybody. Now that NATO, now that Denmark, EU, and all of those are already banned.
They could not stop him from taking the president of Venezuela. They are prosecuting him in New York, in America, on the soil of America, and then what exactly? And he's talking about, removing himself, America, as it were, from different organizations that they belong abroad. And of course, on that, when we talk about you're a member of the UN, if you're no longer the member of the United Nations, what exactly can you do to that country?
That particular nation.
Part of that discussion is that who can stop Trump at this stage? You talked about it in the beginning, that the checks and balances. Somebody needs to check the umpire of the world, sort of. Who is doing the checks and balances? Even the UN before now has really sanctioned America, like he has sanctioned the rest of the world. We see how they are reacting. They reacted when when Russia invaded, started, the war with Ukraine. We saw how, the UN, the NATO, how they were reacting to that. Even America putting sanctions upon sanctions on Russia. But now nobody is even sanctioning America for what it did in Venezuela. Nobody is, even though he has said it, maybe it will become a reality one day, the Greenland situation. Who can stop him like that that I just said? You are making it look very hopeless, but the truth, but the truth of the matter is that as the international system is currently configured, it looks as if Trump is having a field day, because you see, China is interested in economic diplomacy. China is just interested in, he has the largest population, so it's looking for, outlets for, pumping economic resources and, putting his people and all of that. So it's not really interested in those events in the Western Hemisphere. Russia, to some extent, is fighting a war in Ukraine, so its attention is already, they are still on that platform trying to sort themselves out and all that. And so that gives Trump all of that opportunity, a chance to, go on those expansionary agenda. And that is a critical one. But what I can say is that I don't want to use as thoughtless as it looks, as thoughtless as Trump's action looks. I believe that there is a bit of arrangement, a bit of sense in what it does. And you see, in the Western Hemisphere, nobody goes there. It has been there, that region. But if he was interested in force, he wouldn't backtrack to say that the force is not on the table. We are looking at how we can buy these things. We are looking at how we can arrange. There was something that happened last week at the Darfur conference, where he met the Prime Minister of Greenland at the sidelines, and so many things are coming on board, which makes it look for me that there is a lot of things going on there. But one thing is sure, Greenland may eventually pass to America if the pressure is sustained. But most importantly, if we must follow international law, the Greenlandic people will also have a stake
in determining whether they wanted to go to America or not, because but then don't forget that it is about power, and power at times can be rash and thoughtless. We have to.
Let's bring it down to Nigeria, for instance. They talked about the three major. We're saying it's no longer America alone. The Russians, Russia is there, and of course, China is also there. They are all in Africa, and yes, they play critical roles when it comes to security matters in Nigeria. Recently, we saw the relationship between America and the Nigerian government, and some said the reason America, specifically Trump, said he was coming to Nigeria, declared genocide, Christian genocide in Nigeria, was because he was also trying to checkmate China and of course Russia in Nigeria, because they all have interest in Nigeria as maybe the giants of Africa or not. So how can Nigeria position itself at this critical time the world is having this issue?
Yes, borrowing a bit from what my friend here said when he was responding to the question, how would the world react? He made mention of the point, particularly with reference to developing countries, Africa and the likes, that we have to believe in ourselves, hold ourselves well. Even the Greenland thing we are talking about, if America does not get a lead, maybe dangling carrots to institutions and people, Danish government and the Greenland people, it will be extremely difficult, except he want to invade there by force of arms. So for us, I've said it, at home, look at what happened in Venezuela when the basic facts were coming out that the EU has been that the Yoruba will say Bikuli Opani. The security around that president was systematically over the years compromised by America. So when they were just when the news broke that they were just saying, oh, the Kenya, they pick the man, we now look at that they have compromised. So let the government and people who rule this developing country don't behave. You cannot afford to behave like Trump, because all these things that are basic there, we are still struggling for it. Let us rule our countries very well. When people will come and be saying, when Trump was the undoing in Nigeria about the issue of Nigeria, saying that genocide in Nigeria, putting religion into it. We are Nigerians, we know that is a lie.
The reaction of Nigerians at that time, is that not looking like what led to maybe him going elsewhere and leaving Nigeria alone? Because at the end of the day, when you look at what he did after that proclamation about Nigeria, people said, oh, he actually wanted to start from Nigeria. It seems they are looking for resources everywhere. Where can we get this? Where can we get that? Nigeria is one of it in Africa. Oh yeah, how can we do the map, sort of?
At the end of the day, do you see how we reacted? I mean, the government reacted to that. That is just, let us forget about those who consider themselves to unconstitutional opposition here, simply because we are not in government, everything the government does, we want to put the whole of the country down. We've passed this Christian, if genocide is happening in Nigeria, banditry, but not demarcated by religious something. And so you see, when Trump, my own fear about a president of country talking is that merely speaking can cause a lot of harm. Look at what happened in Rwanda. The man who caused it, the very first weapon he used is to establish a radio station and start broadcasting things, you did it. That is exactly what this man who has been jailed now started with. Broadcasting something. So, but if we and the government, we know what we are doing, and we know the antics of America, the personal antics of the president, the historical antics of America, wherever they have interest of natural resources, they go there under one pretext or the other. The pretext to come to Nigeria, to invade Nigeria, we have at least make that clear to the whole world that no, you cannot use that. Try another one. If you want to help us, we'll cooperate with you. Let us settle this issue of banditry.
Okay, Mr. Shoile, talking about a reaction of Nigerians and what he just said, there's a word we use, and that is patriotism. And patriotism, how much of it can be weaponized by Nigerians to actually ensure that we don't lose our sovereignty, we don't fall for the gimmicks or the games of the U.S. led by Trump, because like Mr. Nabawo said, if you're talking about genocide, I don't know the genocide that he's talking about. We have insecurity, we have banditry, we have all of those things, but you still see some people that may still feel like they still believe, even though majority of Nigerians reacted that we don't have it, but there are still little part of Nigerians that are still, and there are some people that can sell out for anything just to achieve whatever they want to achieve. So how much of patriotism can be put into, also fortifying Nigeria, where our leaders have to do something militarily and in terms of policy to secure and protect our sovereignty?
Well, unfortunately, we had to take steps to curb insecurity when that issue came up. Now you can see movements, you can see actions being taken. The fight against the banditry and the insecurity are taking a new tempo because somebody spoke. So what we should do going forward is that government does not need any external pressure to do what is right. Let us just do what is right. When the people see actions and what is being taken, they key into it and then fight anything that is coming from outside.
Yes, this is where, of course, we'll be drawing to the curtains on today's edition of New Dawn, Greenland Annexation, Trump's latest card, and I'm sure that I have been educated by our guest this morning, lawyer Tunji Onobawo, constitutional lawyer actually, and yes, we have a lecturer from Olabisi Onabanjo, who is an historian and of course a diplomatic expert, exactly. Sheung Shoile. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being our guest today on the program.
Being here today.
Sanusi, we just have to go.
Yeah, we have to go. Friday will be another edition of New Dawn. We have another set of anchors that will come to look at another topical issue, critical issue, to dissect it, analyze it, and of course have a conversation around it. But tomorrow we have the Yoruba version of New Dawn, Osmojo. So you can watch that tomorrow, and on Friday you join another edition of New Dawn. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day, and it's bye from us.